Resident Evil 4 is one of the most popular games in all of the industry, and with it spawned so many genres / subcategories of games even outside of horror. Today we'll be delving into all of the cut and remove secrets of Resident Evil, from early game renditions to things even removed from the final / remade versions. First we'll be talking about the 3 versions of Resident Evil 4 that were in development and scrapped as the process of making what would later become the one game we all know and love was continuing. Version 1 was called The Castle, where we see Leon invade an Umbrella HQ and would have the progenitor virus within the remains of an ancient superhuman who ruled a kingdom thousands of years ago, with Oswald E. Spencer trying to gain immortality through it. In RE fashion, both teams are wiped out, leaving Leon as the sole survivor. In this game, Leon is infected with the retrovirus and will slowly mutate over the course of the game. He'll end up meeting up with a mystery woman who is protected by a mutant dog. The game was going to be on GameCube and featured 3D backgrounds like RE Code Veronica. A black fog-like enemy similar to the Ouroboros seen in Resident Evil 5 would be present in the game. Capcom couldn't figure out how to fix light animations for the black fog dude, so they had to change a lot. The script for Castle was handed over to Studio 2, where they made Haunting Ground. In that game focused on the girl and her dog instead, while removing Leon altogether. Version 2, we have the hallucination build. Basically, it's like The Castle but more evolved. It was pitched as more psychological horror with ghost-like enemies instead of the physical BOW mutants we all come to love. The story was basically the same as Castle with a few rewrites to fix up situations. This version had a more evolved, complicated mechanic where 2 versions of a room would load each time, one in reality and one in the hallucination with enemies. Think the Silent Hill franchise. With choosing this mechanic, players could go in between worlds without checkpoints or a loading screen, but the GameCube sadly wasn't powerful enough, and it made one of the developers actually leave the team. The hallucination build was sadly scrapped. Version 3, the Zombie. This version removed hallucinations and kept the castle theme. Difference is the main enemy would be zombie-like creatures called Dobermen, which were controlled by parasites. This build was starting after TGS 2003 and was halted because Shinji Mikami was concerned that sales would stop with a too predictable formula. No designs came out from this version, and I doubt any physical work was put in at this point. But you guys do see the progress made with each iteration, and how some story beats were put into the final version of the game, from the Dobermen being reworked into the Ganados, the castle, 3D environments, and Albert Wesker's slight involvement, including parasitic enemies. Even Leon being infected was worked in. Hell, even the dolls and hallucinations were later used within Resident Evil Village. I do wonder if there's any playable version of RE 3.5. I'd love to dive into that horror. Speaking of horrors, let's dive into the rejected enemies that probably would have been so iconic if they were included within the final version. Nah guys, definitely check some of these out. I'm gonna read these off of their descriptions because my brain could never do these cool designs justice. We got the Armored Ganado. It was a prototype to the Gorodor enemy. The first design appears very similar with its helmet design, however it does not have claws and its eyes haven't been stitched. An interesting design choice was to mark Los Illuminados insignia onto the breastplate. The second design used an older, bulkier style of armor, with the entire face being hidden from the helmet. The breastplate appears to allow the addition of leg plates to form a pre-30 years war suit of armor, but the Ganado does not use them. An enemy known as the Anarchist went through at least 2 different designs before being rejected. In both designs, it has 3 heads and 2 pairs of hands per arm. In the first design, it wears a white robe with black iconography. In its right arm, it is a forked tentacle which can spray gas. The second design has no tentacle, and its robes have switched colors, but the iconography is the same. The assassin bear clawing man, sounds like a comic, was to appear in the castle stage. The design suggests a shirtless Ganado wearing a black mask and armored with long claws attached to its arms. Ultimately, the designs for this and the armored Ganado were merged to create the Gorodor mini-boss. The bound slave was intended to appear around both the castle and the island. It was conceptualized as a man in ragged Arabic style clothes. He kinda looks like the guy off Resident Evil 5. This female Ganado appears in similar dress to a medieval harlequin and carries a sword that resembles a medieval flamberg with shortened length. Now this is badass. The design is super terrifying and I'm stuck wondering why not include her. It would have been so cool. Mask type was another female cultist design. She wears fine robes like high-ranking cultists but has an ornate mask covering her face. The mouth hidden type was to be a variant of the low-ranking plain black clad cultist, appropriately armed with a scythe. A distinction is that she has a cloth to hide her mouth, allowing only her eyes to be seen. The scythe carrier was a high-ranking cultist wearing a ram skull helmet and black robes. He carries a scythe. The Super Dynamite Man, it sounds like an anime again, was intended to appear somewhere in the castle stage to serve as a suicide bomber. He appears to be dressed like the villagers, suggesting he may be one of the miners. He is wearing a vest holding dynamite and has a torch in one hand, which he has used to ignite the other 2 sticks on his head. The tattooed type is a high-ranking cultist. commanders. He wears the special robes worn by other commanders. However, his sleeves are removed to display his arm tattoos. He wears a skull like the other commanders, but this is a bovine skull rather than a goat's. The torchbearer was a cultist wearing fine robes and wearing a ram skull helmet, evidently a high-ranking member. He carries a torch rather than any weapon. Honestly, don't know why some of these enemies were never put in the game. Some of the concepts are extremely cool and campy, but also terrifying. I gotta talk to the guy who greenlit the regenerator because that was too scary. But honestly, if there's a remake being made, I'd love to have some of these featured within the game, if it's not too much. It definitely could add variety and throw returning players a curveball they weren't expecting. The final version of Resident Evil 4 is no stranger to cut or change content either. Some of the pictures and images have definitely been changed up slightly. These are probably to make it easier for casual consumers to know exactly how to play the game in a less complicated way. Here's some of the images compared to the final cut. Even some letters and transcripts were changed completely from what I could see. Some words can be changed here and there, and they're perhaps to make it easier to read or understand quicker. I think these were changed to at least keep some mystery within the cult running the village, and wanted to make it more realistic rather than on the nose. Even this letter from Ada, I kind of see why they removed her saying from Ada, because anyone can stumble across this letter, and her being a secret agent would probably kind of compromise the whole mission if they knew her name. There's even an unused cinematic that introduces those wingless Novistador enemies that reside in the sewer. These cinematics, however, were moved very far out of the sewers and can only be triggered with an out-of-bounds glitch seen here. During chapter 5-3, just before the knife fight with Krauser, Leon would normally have to take the elevator up. However, beyond the fenced-out area below the platform above, there are two steel pillars with interactable climb-up animations between them. Though there's no visible ladder, the ladder may have been a way you needed to get to Krauser in early versions, was probably changed to an elevator to make things easier, and the ladder only takes you to about the height of the second platform that Leon and Krauser fall into during the QuickTime event fight. Not sure if this ladder trigger was removed in later ports, but it is present in all regions of the GameCube version. In Ashley's cool scary ass section, there was a Japanese only fixed camera angle, similar to the old school RE horror games. You could access it with a no clip cheat code, but to my surprise, the leftover camera angle is only available in every Japanese version only. No other version has it. I wonder why this is the case, as we only really play over the shoulder. Why do you guys think some of this stuff is removed from Resident Evil 4? Will it make a return in a remake, or maybe some other main installations in the series? Perhaps Resident Evil 9 whenever that drops. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit that bell to never miss a video, and become a member because half of the profits this channel generate goes towards a community voted charity. With that being said, I'll see you losers later.